Namaste and welcome to another episode of Viewpoint. So reciprocal tariffs, so the new keyword in all the economic circles, in all of the trade circles, and Donald Trump is imposing them in almost every country across the world as a part of his Make America Great Again campaign. So April 2nd is the date. They're saying that reciprocal tariffs will be imposed on India, and Donald Trump feels this will certainly revive his economy. And from the Indian government, there hasn't been much of a response on this. So what's going on? Let's discuss on this today. So we have with us Mr. Suresh Kochattil, a political research analyst. Namaste ji.
Namaskar.
So April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs, and there's some people are calling it trade war. China has actually said that we are prepared for any kind of a war till the end, be trade or anything. But India has taken kind of a demure approach, a soft approach on this. They haven't spoken outright on this. So what is the rationale behind having, this reciprocal tariffs?
Aditya, before we get into that, I think what is the latest news that we saw last night was the fact that President Trump has put on hold certain tariffs on certain products coming from Mexico and Canada, mainly to do with the car industry.
Correct.
A lot of the automobile parts are just-in-time parts. We don't keep any inventory with us.
Right.
Most of the companies have moved. That was the Japanese philosophy of just-in-time, whereas if it is tomorrow's production, all the sub-assemblies and the parts will arrive the previous day.
Correct.
So there is no huge warehouse where they need to keep all these things and stockpiling it, inventory cost and all that, warehousing cost, everything. So just in time is the stuff. So across the Canadian border, the trucks move into US, come directly to the factory, dump it overnight, next day morning. Now suddenly, if you put a thing on 2nd of April, the 1st of April, he didn't want it for very obvious reasons.
Correct. He said he's a very superstitious man,
person.
So April 1st.
People won't believe him if he says 1st of April. So suddenly last night a decision was taken after the stock market reaction, because we saw a huge crash in the US stock market.
Correct.
Especially the car companies who are overly dependent on the Canadian stuff, more than Mexico, it's Canada actually. But the US problem is nothing to do with its fentanyl, and we know all the drugs problem that US has, and it believes that hundreds and thousands of youngsters are dying because of that. They say the autopsies have revealed that it's a drug issue that is traveling primarily from the Canadian side and also from the Mexican side.
Right.
So one fails to understand, if that drug is a problem, then why tariff?
Right.
So there should be a total onslaught on drug, which is anyway happening. Or if you're punishing that country, Canada or Mexico, because of the drug issue, then it's a different case.
Right.
But I think trade to trade, if you ask me, there is only one war that is going on between China and US. And here again, US will have a major issue, because China also sends a lot of parts for different industries.
Right.
For example, in India, even in Hyderabad as we sit, we don't have robotic welding machines. There are some companies in Pune and all who make it, but it's an assembly process. They get something from here and there and assemble it together.
Right.
But the entire unit as such, huge units are not made in India. They're made in China even now. India will take some time to catch up.
Right.
Because one, we don't have the economies of scale. You can't make one unit and sit idle for the rest of the month. They have enough orders from Europe and everywhere, China. So China is sitting on a safe wicket. But in case of India, as you asked right at the start of the question, yes, we have actually Mr. Piyush Goyal sitting there.
Correct.
He left on Monday after dropping everything in hand, cancelling all his appointments and rushed to US.
Right.
Because it makes a lot of sense. From the calculation that was done before, and I had a chat with Mr. Giridhar Mamudi, and he being a chartered accountant, he knows what the impact is. And according to him, if you look at the total 120, 125 billion trade that we have, where we have a 40 billion surplus with US, it will be only a $7 billion impact on the overall product portfolio.
Right.
And he says that doesn't pinch much. Which is
$7 billion in imports or exports?
Exports.
From India?
Exports from India to US will get impacted by 7%.
Correct.
Which is okay. The major exports from India and major imports into US one is precious diamonds.
Right.
Engineering goods, pharmaceuticals.
IT services?
IT services not counted in this.
Okay.
It's a different thing, because the GCC is sitting here, capability centers in India, and they're making the products for a worldwide audience. Today, Oracle doesn't sell for US. Oracle sells for entire. Microsoft doesn't sell for US. It sells for everything. HSBC has a center which has nothing to do with US.
Right.
So the earlier thing about services, that India doesn't charge any tax on services.
Yeah.
We may charge tax on software that is coming in.
Right.
But that also is not a big thing nowadays, because today you have many SaaS products in India itself. You have Zoho's of the world, which is making in India. We have Tally, which is accounting software for a long time. I remember when in my Bangalore days, I used to go to the Tally office, which is a one room house, kind of set up in St. Mark's Road in Bangalore. They've gone huge today. So India doesn't have to worry much about that. We don't also get most of laptops and all that. We are making it in India now.
Right.
Maybe even more from China than from the US. I think the primary sector which will get hit is pharmaceutical, but we don't charge, as of my understanding, any drug coming from the US, we will have to just bring the cost down.
Correct.
If the product is already being made in India, there's a conflict.
Right.
But Indian companies are smart, we know that. Off-patent drugs, they quickly make a new drug, they'll go about roundabout route. Correct. And make the drug. And Hyderabad is the pharmaceutical capital of the world, you can say today, not just India. The second, diamonds and precious diamonds and stones. I mean, come on, if you put a tax on that, what do we get? We don't buy much of stuff from there again.
Right.
So the question is, who loses in the bargain? I think US loses in the bargain because one, the access to Indian markets, your product is expensive as it is.
Right.
Why would someone buy a car from the US which is 4 times that they would get a similar car in India?
Right.
One can think of Elon Musk and then say, okay, Tesla. We don't make Tesla kind of cars in India yet, self-driving or whatever you want to call it. Mahindras have done something, Tatas are doing something. They are the ones going to hit. In fact, they've been lobbying against bringing down the cost. Right. But if you ask me, it should be free for all. Let everybody have fun.
Right.
The final guy who's going to buy it is a consumer.
Correct.
So why are we worried about it?
Right.
Will you pay 3 times the price of a car for a car, something which is very similar available in India? You will say, boss, and Indians are very price sensitive. I mean, we remember the famous joke about, I think it was Mukesh Ambani being taken to, it's a meme actually, taken to a space facility in US and shown a lot of rockets going up and down and all that. After all that, he's asked, kitna mileage deta hai? So that is what Indians are actually. We are like that. So I don't think the major thing, but what Mr. Piyush Goyal is doing is a very smart thing. Sitting there, he's speaking to the Commerce Secretary of US, he's speaking to the US Trade Representative. These are the people who take a call, not Trump.
Correct.
Trump doesn't take a call. He's just given a paper, he signs that big document.
A diplomatic channel, not a political channel.
No, so he's sitting there, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sit there with them, discuss, close everything, take 2 weeks, doesn't matter. We have enough time till 2nd of April.
Right.
Finish it off and say, fine, for products that India doesn't make, you are welcome, we will put 0 duty.
Right.
For example, avocados, which is supposed to be a big thing coming from there to India. Avocados are being now grown in Telangana itself.
Right.
Why will you buy it from there? The major problem that is going to be there, Aditya, is many of the state governments and even union government, we give subsidies.
Right.
For example, we saw a lot of subsidies coming for startups, for companies which are sitting in backward areas. What the US is saying, forget the tariff that you impose on us or we impose on you.
Right.
We will impose that tariff which is a subsidy, because if you are subsidizing a product, which is what China does.
Right.
China does a lot of subsidizing for its steel and aluminum and other products.
Right.
They were bringing the cost down. Now, in case of India, our costs might be lower and all that kind of stuff, but your subsidies are very high.
Correct.
The same problem with agriculture. Indian agriculture imports into US will suffer because we give a lot of subsidies by way of free power, free water, buying at MSP and all this kind of stuff. Free fertilizer input subsidy, Modi ji 6,000 rupees. US is going to count all this.
Right.
They're going to total all this and say 5%, 5%, 10%, 12%, add all things, go 45%. You are charging, you are giving subsidy. So we will put a 45% tariff. Right. It's a different matter that US is also subsidizing its farmers, but doesn't openly talk about it. Here we openly talk because we need votes.
Right.
The political parties need votes, so they openly say that we are giving you this, we are giving you this, we are giving you that.
Correct.
Okay. Now, engineering goods. Again, it's a big thing for India because we are now becoming a manufacturing hub. So we have both ways, the trade both ways, from US and from India. But one thing we all forgetting in this entire bargain is aircraft.
Right.
Defense purchase.
Like F-35s, that was just...
That is defense purchase. I'm talking of Boeing.
Yeah.
Now, if Air India or Indigo orders a huge chunk of, which is already happening as we speak, has huge orders for Boeing, every year the number of aircraft that come in, because when they place for 100 aircraft, for example, which Indigo did, it is not that all the 100 will be delivered in 2025. There is a 10-year window for that.
Staggered out. Yeah.
It's staggered up. So each year there is, that's why Australia, if you observe, very interestingly, President Trump grudgingly admitted that Australia is the only country, one of the big countries, where the US has a trade surplus.
Right.
Australia doesn't have it because Australia imports a lot of aircraft, Boeing aircraft from US. They buy a lot of aircraft. So obviously that cost is taken into factor.
Correct.
Now you can't put a duty on an aircraft which your airline company is buying because you want to make it more expensive.
Right.
And we don't make it. It's a different factor that if you're making the same aircraft in India, then it's a different ballgame.
But wouldn't the strategy of reciprocal tariffs, as some people say, actually cause inflation in the United States?
Short term.
Okay.
Short term. Because as I gave you an example of the car thing, suppose they say, okay, US has to set up the same facility in US, it's going to take 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And their products will be expensive. Why is Canada making it? Because cheaper.
Right.
Many of the guys who are making it in China are from Punjab. Other day I saw an interview with 2 people, both of them had a Singh surname.
Okay.
And they're making car parts, and that they would have done it in Ludhiana or Firozpur or wherever it is, they would have done all that in Punjab, sitting in Punjab. They're doing it in the US or Canada rather.
Right.
So naturally it is cheaper for them. Something very similar. That's why I always keep using this old adage. I think I've done this before on this show here also. America is uncompetitive.
Right.
Or whatever terminology you want to call it. America is not competitive. Not because of anything. President Trump says we will make everything in US. You cannot.
Right.
Because the plumber costs more than the tap.
Right.
The plumber who's coming to fix, say, I'm just taking an Indian example, Indian equivalent, 500 rupees tap charges you 1000 rupees, gone. You're gone. But in India, we are very smart. When the guy comes, we will make him do 10 other things.
Correct.
वो tap का washer गया, इसका गड्ढा गया, इसको change करो, उसको change करो. We will offset the cost.
Correct.
Along with the new tap that is being fitted somewhere. With the US, it's not like that. The guy comes only for that work.
Correct.
And he charges you a bomb. That is the problem. So if it is going to cost you X plus to make a car in the US, China is making it X minus, obviously they have an advantage. Forget about state subsidy and all that.
But why do you think, like most of the nations, like Trump actually said these are unfair tariffs which have been put on us. But every country has their own rationale of why they had a tariff in the first place. So why do you think, was it in such a way that most of the countries put a lot of tariffs on the United States and maybe other countries? And again, as a extension to the question, why do you think earlier US government said, okay, fine, let it be status quo, let us not do the reciprocal tariff kind of a thing?
See, the point is, why do you put tariff is to protect your local industry.
Right.
So in case of agriculture, I gave you an example. Suppose US starts dumping basmati rice tomorrow.
Right.
They can't, but we send basmati there. But they want to send their kind of rice to India, and we say, boss, we're going to put 20% on this. They will say, okay, if all basmati coming to US, we'll put 20%. Or pulses. They'll say, we're going to dump pulses, which is going to be half the rate of what your farmer in India is making.
Right.
So obviously our product will be at a disadvantage. The government has to protect it. We did this during the dumping of the Chinese steel, where we put a dumping duty, which is different from tariff. They were dumping it below the cost. So Tata Steel and every other steel company in India, Rashtriya Ispat Nigam Limited, Steel Authority of India Limited, all the plants were running in losses because of this problem. Chinese have this habit. They dump products left, right and center. Right now, I believe there are lakhs of electric cars which are lying in Chinese warehouses at the ports. They are not able to ship it because US has put a lot of restrictions. Now EU has put a lot of restrictions. So they are facing a problem of glut. They need to dump this somewhere. So they will find Africa or some other country where they will go, continent where they will go and dump all these things.
Right.
At a cost below what the local manufacturer can make. So to protect the local manufacturer, we need to have a barrier. And remember, Aditya, we used to have this World Trade Organization, general agreements on tariff and trade, GATT and all that. Did you ever hear of these people in the last 1 or 2 years? Nobody goes to WTO anymore. If you have a problem with US, you go sort it out like Piyush Goyalji is doing, sort it out across the table. Why bring WTO into it?
Correct.
WTO was a complaining forum where somebody has a genuine, this one he goes and says, this guy put 35% on my product which is unfair, and then the WTO will judge and say this is unfair, it can't be done. But who listens to WTO? It's like International Court of Justice. Nobody bothers about them.
Correct.
So they have lost relevance in the bigger scheme of things.
Correct. So maybe perhaps an important question right now is there's already a lot of complaints against the Indian government that the rupee is devaluing faster than ever vis-a-vis the dollar. So now wouldn't the reciprocal trade tariff essentially mean if India has to enhance their imports and kind of in a way still balance this out, the currency will have to be devalued in some way again? So does that mean we can see the Indian rupee touching 100 per dollar?
See, President Trump is taking on a dozen countries which have devalued their currency.
Right.
He's saying that is also a tariff.
Okay, devaluation also has a tariff.
Okay. So that you make your exports attractive.
Correct.
So he says anybody who does that, that tariff also I'll add on.
Acha, okay.
So why should you devalue your currency? Let it float at own. See, it's not only rupee which has got.
Correct.
It is dollar that is strengthened. And among the major currencies, rupee is holding its fort.
Right.
You can't expect, what is the price of gold, say 20 years ago or 30 years ago?
Right.
I don't know, in 91 when I got married, I think it was around 15,000 for every 10 grams or something in that range. Today, what are we talking about? 90,000 to a lakh of rupees? That means that there has been an appreciation in the gold prices.
Correct.
And your currency is linked to gold.
Correct.
Okay? Because you can't print notes just like that. You're not a Venezuela.
Correct.
Or a Cuba or
Zimbabwe.
Romania or Zimbabwe, where you just keep printing notes. You have to put an equivalent gold into it.
Correct.
Okay, that is the main strategy. Now the problem with US also with Fort Knox, that's a different story altogether, but that is also coming up because of that. Do you hold enough gold reserves to compensate for your printing of currency? But for in India's case, it's very simple. We are now touching, or we going to be the third largest economy in the world. For us, services and agriculture are still a big part of our economy.
Right.
Manufacturing, we are not. So at the same time, we need to appreciate, that's what Modi ji is very smart at. You know, give a meter and take a mile, they say.
Right.
Modi ji told, okay, fine, there are some things, for example, AVAX, which is the early warning system that you have aircraft flying overseas, and reconnaissance flights and all that. We don't have it.
Right.
We can't make F-35s in India. We're struggling to make Tejas.
Right.
So we need 2-3 squadrons. Le lo yaar, farak nahi padta. Keep America happy again.
Correct.
Buy some more Predator drones or whatever, Javelin missiles from them. Keep them happy. So, you know, the point is, Trump will be very happy because his factories will be running full load for the next 3 years.
Correct.
Okay. So, be it McDonnell Douglas or somebody else, their factories will be running full steam, Raytheon and all these people. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that our products also get an entry into US. Our products, natural entry for our products is, for example, textiles. We have replaced Bangladesh as the textile capital again.
Right.
Tirupur and Ludhianas are the world.
Right.
Bangladesh is lost out because after this particular coup and all that kind of stuff, whatever happened there, Bangladesh is out. Pharmaceuticals. US cannot sell that cost at that cost to its people. And if you make medicines expensive, it's going to be a big hit on the inflation.
Right.
As it is, healthcare in US is a big mess. To meet a consultant, to meet a specialist, it takes you 6 months.
Right.
Okay, you can't do that. I'm saying medicine is going to be more expensive. We can't do that. India does a lot of generic stuff, which is selling well in the US. So all your Dr. Reddy's to every other pharma company in India from India will be dependent on the US for a large extent. Okay, we also sell to Europe. It's a different matter.
Right.
But the problem is very simple. For us, when you look at a $7 billion loss, which is what, as Giridharji was saying, I think we should bite that bullet. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Piyush Goyal is there. He will know that some things, okay, fine, boss, Harley Davidson ko zero kar do. You can't, but at the same time, from bringing it down from 110% to zero is a ridiculous thing. You should bring it down slowly.
Right.
But Trump is in a man in a hurry. He doesn't want to wait. He wants everything now. Otherwise, I'm going to put tariff. It's like a dhamki. But it didn't work in case of Canada and Mexico, as you saw. It is not that easy. Overnight, you can't put tariff on Indian pharma products because who will supply the medicines then? Only the Indians can do.
Correct.
At that cost.
Correct. So as a final question, do you feel in this entire kind of equation, economical equation that's happening, like we know that, you know, Modi does have a good relationship with Trump. So do you think over here, these kind of personal relationships will help get you a better deal, a better bargain, or do you think Trump is going to be completely ambivalent, he's going to be neutral?
See, it's not Trump who's deciding, as I indicated.
The bureaucrats, as you mentioned.
It's the bureaucrats.
Yeah.
It is the Commerce Secretary. It is the Trade Representative. These are two crucial people, US Trade Representative.
Right.
And Piyush Goyal is speaking to them.
Right.
Sitting there in the US, thrashing it out and saying, fine boss, if there are 100 products on which we are putting a tariff on you, we will reduce it to 20 products.
But do personal relationships help here?
It does help. At the end of the day, money talks.
Right.
The US needs to bridge its gap of revenue and expenditure.
Right.
It's what we call fiscal deficit.
Correct.
They are in trillions.
Correct.
Okay, they are trying to cut their staffing, they are trying to cut their government, size of the government, they are trying to cut US aid so that all that money can be put back into their economy.
Right. Right.
So they need to, but their deficit is huge, internal deficit for them.
Correct.
They need to bridge that.
Right.
And for that, Trump will go anywhere, anytime to get that done because that is linked to inflation.
Right.
And right now inflation is very high. Remember the cost of eggs in US is a big discussion because last year they killed 100 million birds.
Correct.
So naturally when you kill 100 million birds, the cost of the eggs are going to go up because there are no hens producing eggs anymore. So cost has gone up. So it's a chicken and egg situation again, you know, what came first.
Correct.
But the point is very simple is today in the world of trade, it's like the winner takes it all. So you need to be like China on one hand, which is do what you want, I will sell.
Right.
India needs to look for new markets now. India needs to look for new markets. India had ignored Europe for long. Now just last week we had the European Commission and the trade commissioners coming down. India is going to sign a deal by the end of this year. We don't have time till end of the year. We need to finish it by June, July.
Right.
And start selling to EU. They will say, okay, what are you buying? We'll buy Airbus from you,
Right.
aircraft, okay, or some other things like maybe high-end technology stuff from you.
Right.
But at the same time, you need to buy these things from us, pharma and everything else that goes to that side of the
Right.
continent.
Fair enough. So thank you so much for your valuable insights.
Thank you.
So you heard today's discussion. So what do you think about it? Please comment below. We'll catch up again. Namaste and Jai Hind.